Good morning, class. I thought I'd give a brief, little lecture slash tutoring session here. I kind of invited all of my online courses just to sort of, touch base with everybody since last week was midterm and the midterm grades went through. So the way I want to try to do this is if you're in 1101, my online English 1101, probably the first, because it's a little after 10, so probably about from 10 to 10:30. Pretty much the first 30 minutes or so of this video is just going to be devoted to 1101 stuff. The last 30 minutes from about 10:30 to 11 o'clock will be devoted to English 1102 online courses. So if you are viewing this later and you're in a English 1102, I will sort of timestamp it in the description once I upload it to sort of give you an indication of where to sort of zoom or fast forward to so you can get the information in 1102. If you look, I'm sharing the screen that shows your Blackboard page for a 1101 course. Primarily my online 1101 course, the 21283 CRN. Notice the extra credit opportunity for the library orientation is still available, but it's only going to be available until the 27th of October by 2 o'clock that afternoon, because that Wednesday we're going to have the Camden County librarian Lorna come in. She's embedded into our course, and she's going to talk a little bit more about how to use Galileo, what type of tools and resources that our library at this college, or really any Coastal Pines Technical College, has to offer. We're going to look at certain databases, and this is really getting you prepped and prepared for your upcoming research paper. So pretty much the whole entire month of November is going to be devoted to your research paper topic, your research paper, the proposal to your research paper, which is going to be one assignment, one component, and also another assignment or another component to your research paper is going to be the annotated bibs, which is where you're going to use your 6 sources. So, and by that time, everybody should be finalizing, I hope, and finishing up your persuasive essay, essay 4, because remember, I changed the due date to have that in by 11:59 on Sunday, October 31st. Now, next week, probably, toward the end of this week, I'm going to go ahead and create the Dropbox for that particular essay. And, if you have kids like I do, and weather permitting and everything else going correctly, especially if you have small children, you're probably going to want to try to do some kind of trick-or-treating, depending on, when your county and stuff is actually going to do it, if they're going to do it at all, because Halloween is on a Sunday. I know some counties, sometimes they make trick-or-treating on a Saturday if it falls on a Sunday. So any event, the Dropbox is going to be up there, so you don't have to wait until Sunday to submit your essay 4. If you're using Smart Thinking, if you're submitting me Microsoft Word attachment drafts to my email, and after you do that several times, if you feel sort of confident and comfortable about the progress and the process that you're going through as it relates to the writing to your essay 4, and you want to go ahead and submit it as a final grade, you can do that pretty much anytime that Dropbox is available. You don't have to wait until the due date. So if you haven't done the library orientation, and I do have a list, some folks are just going in and doing the pretest. They're not going through the entire modular. And because if you do the pretest, it's going to take you through a modular, and then it's going to redirect you, or it should redirect you to the post-test. Now, I did send out, because certain students said they were having issues after they went through, that I wasn't really redirecting them fast enough to the post-test for whatever reason. So I did send out an email that had the hyperlink to the post-test maybe a week or so ago. So double check your email, look for that hyperlink. Because if you're only completing the pretest, and I can verify it because your results are going to Lorna, and I have to get with her to get the spreadsheet. But if you're only doing the pretest, then you're only getting 5 out of your 10 points. That's still better than nothing. But if you want the full 10 points, I have to be able to prove that you took the pretest and the post-test. They're two different tests. So some folks are going in and taking the pretest twice. Well, that's just taking the pretest twice. You need to take the pretest and the post-test. And you have until Wednesday by 2 o'clock on October 27th to get that completed. The other thing is that I sent out weeks ago as well through email, and some of y'all have done this, is that student evaluation survey. There's a couple things you need to, if you go back and look at that email, I'll give you the instructions, but I need to see that you took 2 screenshots, mainly of the first page, which is basically question 1, choosing me as the instructor that you're going to evaluate, and then taking a screenshot or a snapshot of the screen where it takes you to after you complete the survey. So right there, you got 2 extra credit opportunities to get up to 10 points on both. So if you really look at it, you have an opportunity to get 20 points really easy, and it doesn't take as much time as you think. If you go through both, really take them seriously, probably 30 minutes at that. But if you want extra credit, and I will apply this extra credit, I've been applying it to the essays because that's where they usually, that's the weight is more. So if you have a low essay grade somewhere, I put, one set of 10 points to that essay, the other 10 points to another essay. This is probably going to be the only opportunity that I'm going to be able to, offer extra credit. So if you want extra credit, you have, about another week or so to do the library orientation. I have to see when the surveys really have to be in, but you may have a little bit more time on that. Otherwise, the only other opportunity I'm going to give, if you want to count it as extra credit, is I would drop one of your lowest weekly assignment grades. Now, a weekly assignment grade could be a peer review or a quiz grade. So in some ways, I'm offering you 3 chances to really improve your grade heading into really our final weeks of the semester. So if you want the extra credit, again, it's optional. I'm not forcing you to do it. You really need to do the survey though. I mean, the college needs that. We all need that. But again, a lot of it is, it's optional. And again, I'm going to honor my dropping the lowest weekly assignment grade. So if you know which quiz or if you know which peer review that you want me to go ahead and drop, I can do that. You have to send me an email and let me know which one you want me to drop. Otherwise, I will probably drop those as we go into Thanksgiving break week, because when we come back from Thanksgiving, we only have maybe a week and a half left before the semester ends. And I want to go ahead and honor that before things get really crazy on my end as it relates to grading. So you have that, that grade dropped. All right, so if you look, we have the week 9 folder. Week 10, I will make that available probably before I leave today. And that's you will probably find the Dropbox for your essay 4 in the week 10 folder. So again, if you want to turn that in, you can. So week 9 is just sort of continuing on from week 8, really, when it deals with the persuasive essay. I moved some of the handouts from week 8 back into the week 9 folder so you could have those. And it looks like some of these are hidden still for whatever reason. So let me go ahead and change the date here so you can have some of this information if you didn't get a chance to look at it last week or didn't print them out. Keep in mind, each week, Sunday at midnight, these folders sort of shut down or close up. So I try to move any of the important stuff that needs to be carried over into the next week's folder, but really it's probably best if you can kind of download it and save it to your desktop or a zip file or something so you can retrieve it really easily. If you look, the essay 4 information, we talked a little bit about that, I think, last week. But basically what you're trying to do in this particular paper, and I'll go ahead and pull it up, I guess, just to sort of rehatch. You're still using the same MLA 9 format, right? Double space times New Roman 12. That's not really going to change with any of the essays that we do. And if there is a change, I will let you know what the format would be. So you're pretty much following that same format. The length of this paper needs to be 5 pages or 1,250 words, whichever comes first for you. Again, the date is not going to be the 24th. It's going to be the 31st. So I sent an email out yesterday about that. So don't freak out and think that you have to turn something in this Sunday. You really don't. What you could do, like I said in the email, is we're not really having a formal peer review for essay 4 like we've done for essay 1 and essay 2. A lot of it's because of time, and a lot of it is because I'm trying to catch up with lingering assignments that I still have to grade. With that said, you could still send me drafts. You can still send smart thinking drafts. If you know a peer in your class, if you have their email, and you can find their email address through the email section of the Blackboard, you can also send them a draft if you want to sort of, pair up with somebody and still do sort of like a informal peer review. It won't be a graded peer review, but I will give you feedback and suggestions of how to improve essay 4. So when you turn it in for that final grade on the 31st or by the 31st, hopefully the grade will improve. Right? That's the whole purpose of doing peer reviews, whether formally for a grade or informally. You still want to sort of send drafts to me and the smart thinking and to anybody else that would care to look at it to get the best possible, one, to help the quality of your writing, but 2, to also get the best possible grade that you can get on essay 4. And really what you're doing in here, you're persuading me, aka your community, of bringing some form of entertainment, whether it's restaurants, whether it's parks, whether it's amusement parks, whatever you think. Let's say Glenn County or Camden County or whatever county that you may reside in would benefit of having some form of entertainment or something new that the whole community can join into. That includes kids, that includes college students, high school students, young adults, married couples, single couples, or single folks, older couples. You're persuading your audience, in this case me, aka the community, I guess you can kind of look at it, of what you're trying to bring into your town or your city is not only going to help improve the quality of life, meaning would it bring outsiders in to come visit to spend money? Um, would it benefit for the current citizens, meaning that you won't have to go to Jacksonville or Savannah or a bigger city to find entertainment? You can kind of keep it within your own hometown, and you're really sort of persuading me, right? You don't necessarily have to go out and get research unless you just want to get sort of some type of research for this particular um, assignment. But we're using the rhetorical appeals, the ethos, the pathos, and the logos, and I'm going to bring those up here too because they were there last week and they're there this week. Anything that you write, anything that you read, anything that you hear, radio advertisements, especially political speeches and that type stuff, they deal with Aristotle's three rhetorical appeals: the logos, the ethos, and the pathos. So probably, I mean, even though that we didn't really focus on a lot of those with the first three essays, anything that you write, you're having those appeals sort of in the back of your mind. You're sort of doing it maybe without even noticing that you're doing it, if that makes sense. So if we look at some of those appeals, just going through some of this real quick before we get to the appeals. If you look at this persuasive essay handout, it sort of gives you like a brainstorming steps of how to approach this particular essay, sort of like a outline. So that could be helpful if you're still having issues. You want to be careful that you want to really pay attention to the characteristics of a persuasive essay. You want to write in third person, using it, he, she, they uses formal language to discuss someone or something. So just keep in mind, we're trying not to use first person as much, right? We're not trying to turn this into a narrative essay or a descriptive essay again. You can still use description, which you want to use description, but you just want to be careful about the person that you're in when you're writing this particular essay. You don't want to use second person. And what I mean by second person, you and you want to eliminate that because you want to make this formal. You're trying to persuade the community. You're trying to persuade me that whatever forms of entertainment that you want to bring into your hometown would be a benefit to the larger community. So you're not necessarily addressing you and you're addressing the, your particular community in this case. So be careful about, overusing I. You can use I in there for, examples. Like if you wanted to bring up a particular example that you lived, let's say in Glenn County for 15 years, and when you were a kid, this is what we had, or what you had and what we didn't have, and that type deal. If you want to bring in, sort of like a personal example, then obviously you can use I. But again, you want to be careful that you're not turning essay 4 into essay 1 and trying to make a story out of it, because you're trying to persuade your audience in this case. So this is one really good handout you can use. Persuasive language. This is the three rhetorical appeals. The ethos appeals to the authority and credibility of the writer or the speaker. So in this case, you're the writer, so I have to be able to believe into your authority and your credibility. And what does that mean? Well, because let's say you are a citizen of Camden, I have to believe that you've lived here a good bit of time to be able to, because I'm not from Camden. So you have to kind of convince me what Camden has, what it lacks. how your ideas of your form of entertainment, whatever you plan on bringing in, would be a benefit not only to you as a citizen, but all the citizens of Camden. And your credibility and authority there is going to make the difference, because if you're not from Camden, it's going to be really kind of hard to talk about it. It's really going to be kind of hard to make up too. So this is one of those things you really can't, make up stuff when you're trying to persuade your audience to buy into what you're trying to sell them. Pathos appeals to the emotions. It evokes emotional response not only from the reader, your audience. It's sort of like pulling on their heartstrings and some aspects. If you look at these little stick man, we kind of talk a little bit about that here momentarily. Logos deals with the appeal to logic and reason, because that's where you're going to be able to sort of prove your argument or your debate on paper. Why we should bring in another restaurant. Why should we bring in like a Dave and Buster's, even though there's one in Jacksonville? Why should Camden County have one? So if you look at some of these examples, like for the ethos, it says, as a doctor, I can say that this product will certainly improve your health. Well, what's the appeal? How is this appeal to credibility and authority? Well, it's a doctor. Doctor is saying that this product is going to improve your health. Well, how do we know that's true? Well, we have to assume that it's a doctor, and the doctor went through medical school and has been practicing medicine for a long period of time, and he's got some sort of credibility and authority over his practice and over that particular medicine. So again, that's where the appeal to authority and credibility would come into play. Pathos, if you look at the little example, if you don't buy this life insurance, you are letting your family down. So again, it's sort of appealing to the reader's emotion. It's basically saying, hey, if something happens to you and you don't have life insurance, you're going to be out of the picture, and you're going to leave your loved ones sort of footing the bill. And we know that, burying or cremating anybody, if something happened of that nature, is going to cost if you don't have some sort of life insurance in play. And then again, when we look at logos, it says it's a fact that smoking causes cancer. Therefore, if you don't want cancer, you shouldn't smoke. Well, that's the logical reasoning there, right? There's been studies, there's been medical studies that if you smoke for a long period of time, chances are you're going to get cancer. So they can't really make that up, right? I mean, because it's been documented. There's reasoning, there's logic behind that. And if you look, I'm not going to go through all of this because of time, but it gives you sort of example scenarios for each one of the rhetorical appeals that you may want to look at to sort of get a general idea about how maybe to use certain rhetorical appeals in your own persuasive essay. So again, this is just more or less for added information for you. You don't have to feel like you have to answer these and submit them, because I'm not going to take this particular handout up for a grade, but it's just there for your own enrichment. Logical fallacies. You have to be careful of falling into certain traps sometimes when you're making your persuasive argument on paper. And again, there's a lot of these. So you want to just be mindful if this page will ever load up. Let me come back to this here in a minute. And then you have, well, let me pull up Martin Luther King's letter from Birmingham jail. This is a fairly lengthy letter, as you can tell. It's about 10 pages. And the reason why I put this up here was that you can read through these paragraphs and sort of pick up the rhetorical appeals, the ethos, the pathos, the logos that King is using in this particular jail letter, to kind of help you maybe when it comes to your own essay 4, to see if you're using some of the same ethos, logos, and pathos while writing your paper. And again, if you want to read through this and you have questions about it, if you want to try to label like certain areas of a paragraph, hey, King is using ethos here, or he's using pathos there, or he's using logos here, you can always email me and, kind of refer to which paragraph you're talking about. And I can, double check to make sure you're sort of going in the right track if you're trying to label stuff. But this is a really good piece of history. So have a look at that. Okay, so this website finally did load up. The good thing about this is if you're a visual learner, it kind of has that appeal to it. It gives you the definition or description of the actual fallacy, and then it gives you an example. So you want to be careful that you're not making these types of fallacies in your essay 3. If you look at one of the more common ones that we see a lot is this begging the question. So it says making a claim that uses tacit or implied assumptions raises a question by assuming an answer or shared belief. So to give you an example here, it says the country's moral situation will only get worse if we continue to allow R-rated movies in public theaters. So it says here, this statement raises the question, but do R-rated movies actually decrease morality? It's sort of like the whole deal about video games. In the past, there's always been that claim that video games causes violence. It causes people to go out and, do mass shootings, that type deal. But is there really a lot of truth to that? Which begs the question, because there's a lot of folks out there that play video games on a daily basis, but they don't go out and, want to try to reenact Grand Theft Auto on the general public. So that's just one sort of example. There's also the cherry pick. You probably heard about cherry picking. Cherry picking a particular data set or collection of facts while ignoring others in order to make an argument that suits a particular purpose. So again, the example here is the Fast Food Times just reported some pretty convincing evidence. 78% of people who eat fast food regularly aren't obese. Well, you can take that argument or that other side there and say that, most folks that do eat fast food on a regular basis, 3 meals a day, will probably be obese at some point. You have the circular reasoning, confusion of correlation and causation, excluded middle, half-truth, loaded question, misunderstanding, statistics. So you have a good bit of these. The red herring is another classic fallacy, diverting attention by changing the subject. So you want to sort of avoid some of these. The straw man is another classic in your particular essay 4. So this might be another good resource to look at while you're drafting and finalizing your essay 4, so you make sure that you're not actually getting into some of those fallacies, because your audience would be able to pick them apart and sort of realize, hey, you're making a appeal to ignorance, or you're making an appeal to tradition. And usually when you have those in a particular persuasive argument, if your audience is, glued into those particular fallacies, they can, start poking holes in your debates or your argument and really, drain the water out of it. You won't necessarily have a really convincing, persuasive argument on paper if we're able to drain the water out of your cup, so to speak. So that's another good analogy. If your ideas, if what you're trying to persuade your audience for essay 4, if it can be held in a cup and we can't pick holes and start draining those ideas out or draining that water out of that cup, then you have a pretty solid persuasive essay 4 happening. If we can start, putting little holes in that cup and starting seeing little things, your ideas are not really up and up on things, the water is starting to drain out of that cup, then your persuasive argument is not going to be well received. So just be mindful of that. And otherwise, that's pretty much week 9, the continuation of week 8 dealing with a persuasive essay. So again, if you have any questions, please reach out. I do have several essays left to grade as it relates to essay 3. I hope to get most of those done today. So I'm hoping, by this weekend, once you check Blackboard, you will see that your grade is up to date as we head into week 10. I hope everybody has a great weekend. I hope everybody has a great week 10. Please send drafts when you can. Please reach out if you need help. I'm here, always willing to help you as much as I can. But like I've always said, I can't read minds. I don't read minds. So if you're struggling or if you need help, you really need to reach out in a timely manner before I actually have to sit down and grade something. Because then it's a little bit past the point. If you're having, issues with essay 4, you don't want to wait until I go ahead and grade your essay 4 and say, hey, I didn't really understand it. Well, you had nearly 2-3 weeks to get help. Please get the help. All right, so I'm going to shift gears. So if you are listening to this, I'm ending the 1101 section, and I'm going to pick up and briefly, with the remaining time, talk about the happenings in English 1102. All right. So I'm going to switch out of this and go back to my home page and pull up one of my English 1102 online courses. So again, if you click on the lessons, you have the same opportunity to do the extra credit, the library orientation, just like my 1101 group. Please do that if you haven't. The same thing with the survey. It's a really easy way for y'all to get some easy extra credit points right here as we head into really our final week, right? We have week 9 this week. Week 10 is our final week of the poetry unit in English 1102. And week 11, we start the drama unit, which is basically our last unit for the semester. That's where you're going to get some information about the research paper that deals with the happenings and the readings that we're dealing with, basically weeks 11 through the remainder of the semester as it relates to drama. So if you look here, week 9, we're dealing with the romantic poets. Notice I put these countdowns up here mainly as helpful reminders. For some, they are really good motivational tools because they can see how much time they have before a major assignment is due, like SA2 is going to be due here in 3 days and X amount of hours, minutes, and seconds. If you scroll down, you see when exam 2, you have a little bit of time left on that. But I did update, and I sent an email out on this about your poetry essay. So let's bring that up real quick and just go over that again as a recap, because I did talk about that, I think, last week. So I'm giving you 2 options with SA2, and basically you're doing the same with both. The only difference is option A, you have 2 poems already for you that you're going to have to read, annotate, take your own notes, and the hyperlink for those 2 poems are right here. What you're going to have to do is, I usually highlight it and I click copy. I'm going to get out of this, and I go ahead and paste it. No, I didn't do it right. Let's see here. Let me go back. I gotta copy. Yeah, I need to copy the hyperlink. So you want to copy the hyperlink, and then it's going to pull you up to this page, and you go down to page 5, because that's basically where those 2 poems are. And it's sort of right in there is the same sort of prompt I'm using. It's basically wanting you to read Piano 1 and Piano 2 by D.H. Lawrence. It says read both poems carefully and then write an essay in which you explain what characteristics of the second poem, Piano 2, make it better than the first. And you want to use textual evidence from the poem, as it says here, refer specifically to details of both poems. So you're going to have to use quotations from both poems. You're sort of doing like a compare and contrast, and you're trying to figure out what makes the second poem better than the first through your analysis, your interpretation, and that compare and contrast. So you don't necessarily have to go out there and get secondary academic resources like through Galileo or through some of the databases, through the library, unless you just want to. Again, if you use quotations from other areas, you need to document those properly. I did send out a bunch of stuff over the last 8 weeks about how to, properly document prose writing and verse writing, which is poetry. When we get into week 11, I will send out some stuff about how to go about quoting drama correctly using MLA 9 and that type stuff. So be on the lookout for that. So this is option A. If we go back, option B wants you to choose 2 poems that we've read, discussed, and looked at over the last 3 or 4 weeks, right? Basically week 6 through, I said week 6 through 9, because that would give you enough time if you wanted to do something, one of the earlier 2 poems or whatever that case may be. I did open up the week 10 folder if you wanted to get ahead and look at some of the poems there, if you wanted to pick one of the poems out of that section as well. But basically, again, you want to have 2 poems that we've just, read or discovered over the last 3 or 4 weeks. And you're sort of doing a compare and contrast there. You're looking at the similarities and differences between the 2. And the good thing about this, the update, I showed you, sort of gave you like a generic outline that you can use for either option A or option B. And I kind of tell you how many paragraphs would make, the paper length or the word count. I tell you kind of, pick a couple. In this particular case, like I said, choice A, choice B, I focused on structure, form of a poem, meaning, theme of the poem, figure of language. You can choose, 2 or 3 other major characteristics of your particular poems if you want, but you can use this particular outline for either option A or option B. I strongly encourage that you do send drafts to me in Smart Thinking. If you haven't, if you didn't do that with the fiction essay, those that did send me drafts in Smart Thinking, obviously, I mean, the grade was a whole lot better than if you just wrote the thing a day before and just submitted your first draft as your final draft. Um, Especially if you're still sort of uneasy about how to quote properly, with poetry. I know some folks are not really doing the block quotations correctly as it relates to poems. Remember, if you use 3 or more lines of a poem, you're supposed to block it. And I think I sent out through an email, but I also uploaded, get out of this, Citing Poetry and MLA. That's been sort of up there since about week 5 or week 6. So if you click on this, it goes through and it tells you how to block a quote, like here, quoting more than 3 lines. It shows you how to quote less than 3 lines. So this is going to be a really good resource to use if you didn't use it for your discussion post. Definitely you want to use it for your SAT, because the SAT is going to weigh a little bit more in the grade than your discussion post. But again, that's where I come in. That's where Smart Thinking comes in when you want to send drafts. Please send drafts. Send as many as humanly possible. Being that your essay is due Sunday, right? Today's Thursday, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you got 3 days. I will probably have to cut off looking at drafts for SAT. I would say, I think I originally said midnight on Friday, but I think I can extend that a little bit. I have been having issues with my home internet, so that was sort of the reason why I said Friday. It looks like it's starting to work a little bit better now. I'm supposed to have somebody come out there and actually look at it possibly tomorrow afternoon. It's been working fairly well the last couple days. So I had a tech call me last night, and they were trying to help me and work through all that. So we'll see tonight if it's still going well. Probably won't necessarily need that tech to come out on Friday. So I could probably extend when I can stop reading drafts. I would say by, midnight Saturday. So if you get something into me by midnight Saturday, and as long as my internet is still stable, I should be able to get stuff back to you fairly early, or at least earlier in the day, before the deadline. I'm not going to be able to check or read stuff if you wait until Sunday afternoon, like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's just, I'm not going to have enough time. To be on the safe side, though, just in case I do have internet hiccups, I would try to still send me drafts today and tomorrow. More so today because, again, I'm only at the office Monday through Thursday. Friday through Sunday is basically my time off, but I try to still check emails and grade and look at stuff. But again, if my internet is not on the up and up, it may be sort of a delay, and I do apologize for that. That's why I'm sort of giving that disclaimer now. If you want me to look at something before the weekend, definitely send stuff today and send stuff, tomorrow. Because it's a lot easier if I have a desktop and I can actually read and go through these than it is to, I can use the Wi-Fi on the phone, but it's hard to give feedback. If you ever try to type an essay or do anything, work related that involves extensive feedback on your phone, it's just it's a pain. Otherwise, it seems like, because really this was just going to be a tutorial, if anybody showed up and they had any help, I was going to help them work through some of their problems, whether it was with an essay or with a particular poem. It seems like most folks are not having too many problems with the poetry. At least I'm not getting emails saying, hey, I don't understand this or I don't understand that. I'm hoping the notes and stuff that I do provide sort of give you that lecture field. I know it's a little different than being face-to-face in an in-person class, but I'm assuming that you're reading these notes that are connected to these poems. So after you read the poem, you're looking at the notes and then possibly either going to other avenues, and that's fine, to get, additional interpretations or help with the poem. But you can always email me, when we have these tutorial sessions, you can always show up. You don't have to necessarily stay the whole time, but I am here to help you not only with the writing, but also help you with your understanding of the readings. So please, don't be shy, and you're not bothering me when you're asking for help. That's what I'm here to do. I want to help you. I want you to get the best possible, not only the best possible grade out of the course, but I want you to learn how to do this stuff. Because if you have to take additional English classes, if you're transferring to another college or whatever, chances are you may have to take another English class, and this stuff is just not going to go away. I mean, you're still going to have to be able to analyze poetry, short stories, novels, dramas. You're going to have to write essays and research papers. So a lot of this stuff just doesn't, and you can use a lot of what you learn in here, the critical reading and critical writing and analytical thinking skills and all that with other courses. The other thing is I want to bring everybody's attention to was I did upload, and this has been up here for a while too, a model student essay of essay 2. The only thing I did was basically change the date to sort of make it really look like, the one that's due on the 24th. But this was a former student who wrote on 2 of William Blake's chimney sweeper poems. And this particular student did a really good job. This was an A quality paper, meaning that she made a 90 or higher on it. So if you look at this, even though it's, 2 different poems you didn't read, it sort of gives you the format and the layout, especially if you look at some of the feedback or the suggestions that I put over here. I give you guidelines of what your paper needs to have and how it needs to be styled and that type stuff. So if you look, this was nearly an 8-page paper. It has the works cited page, that type deal, shows you how to go about doing that. So again, this is a good resource to use as you are drafting and finalizing your essay 2 as well. So please look at that. Let me see. Week 10 has 3 additional poems, and then we have the exam. Now, if you look, I sent this out in an announcement and in an email. This is the password you're going to need to be able to take this exam. You can pretty much take this exam at any point that you feel confident. The exam basically covers some of the poetic concepts and terms and that type stuff that you should have looked at not only in your e-text, but also as you're, reading the particular 3 poems that we have on each week and the notes there too. Because if you looked at that email, or if you looked at the information about the exam, which is also, that's been up, and I've been moving that from, week 6 to week 7 to week 8. I kind of give you some hints to sort of be mindful of. And I'll actually give you the poem in advance. So it's a poem that we haven't really read in class, but it still sort of relates to some of the poetry concepts and terms and that type of stuff that if you've been keeping up with the weekly readings of the poems and the weekly readings of the stuff in the e-text, that you'll be able to do this poem, read this poem, take notes over it, and be able to answer the 10 questions. So again, the poem here, I'm just going to click on the hyperlink or copy the hyperlink and pull that up real quick, because I did pull this up in a previous video. This is the poem, Description of the Morning by Jonathan Swift. It's about 18 lines in length. Again, if you pay attention to these hints and you take your own notes and that type of stuff on the poem, the exam shouldn't give you too many problems. The exam is 10 objective multiple choice questions, and it covers that particular poem. So there's no way that you can get partial credit. You either get it right or you get it wrong. But again, if you read the poem, if you took the time to really read it and take notes over the last couple of weeks, because it's been available for quite some time in the weekly folders, then you shouldn't have too many issues. I hope. Again, you have 75 minutes once you start. To be able to complete it. Most folks, I mean, if you really read the poem and you took notes over it and you really kind of prepared and studied and you read the questions and you look at your answer choices, there's nothing there really that is supposed to trick you up. It's not a tricky exam, or it shouldn't be, especially if you went through the motions of accurately and seriously preparing for it. If you just go in there and not really, have any idea, didn't read the poem in advance, didn't take notes over it, didn't look at some of these hints that I'm sort of giving you to be successful on it, and just sort of go in there and take it cold turkey, then you're probably going to have some issues. The whole reason why I wanted to give you the poem in advance was for you to accurately and honestly prepare for it. So in other words, if you just click on the exam, put in the password and go in and just read the poem for the first time at that point, then yes, it's probably going to be a challenging exam, more so than the first exam. So each correct answer is worth 10 points. So you can kind of look at it there. If you miss 3, you're at a 70. If you miss 2, you're at an 80. If you miss 1, you're at a 90. So, and there's only one letter answer per question. So if you put A and B, it's going to be wrong, because there's not multiple answers to one question. It's one single letter per question. So just keep that in mind. A lot of students like to put A or B, or put A and B, or C and E, or whatever the case may be. And one of your answer choices may be correct, but since you gave me 2, I have to mark them both wrong, because there's only one letter per answer. So just be mindful of that. Otherwise, I look forward to reading your drafts. I definitely enjoyed a good bit of your poems that you created for your particular picture or photograph last Sunday. Most folks did really well on that. If your grade kind of slipped there, it was because you didn't follow the full instructions. Remember, you needed to include, like I did on my particular poem that I had as an example in there, you needed to include your photograph or your picture at the end or at the beginning of your poem, and you needed to properly have a works cited entry for it. That's where several students that just gave me the poem and they never gave me a picture or a photograph. So I didn't really know what you're writing the poem on based on your picture or photograph. The other thing is, and this could be more of a stylistic thing, but notice that when you're reading some of these poems, either in the e-text or online or just, in any anthology, there's still punctuation at play. So some of y'all just didn't provide the proper punctuation at the end of the sentence, like a period or a comma or something of that nature, that you would see on any, in most printed professional bits of poetry. So some of y'all lost some points for just not doing that, or not following the proper MLA format, right? You just gave me the poem and you didn't really give me a header. So, I could go back and look to see by your upload to the blog or to the page, but when I downloaded it, it didn't have any it didn't have your first or last name or anything like that. So just be careful that you're following not only the directions and guidelines for each assignment, but you still, if you type anything and you upload it, that you're following the proper MLA format. The header, the title, the last name and page number in the top up right hand corner of every page, a works cited page, especially if you're quoting or like getting a picture. Even if you were using a personal picture, there was a way to cite that. And you could have asked, right? You could email me. Some folks did, about how to go about citing a personal photograph or a picture. But all in all, unless you just didn't turn something in, which I had a few folks that just didn't turn anything in, most people did really well, A's and B's, on that particular assignment. All right, so I think we're going to leave it there. I don't see anybody that actually joined on, so I will have this uploaded, and I will tell you again, it was sort of a joint effort with 1101 and 1102, so I will put in the description of when you need to pick up for your particular class. I hope everybody has a great rest of the week, good weekend, and good luck on, the essay, the exams, the quizzes, whatever else that you got going on in your world. And I hope to see everybody for another session next week. Have a good weekend.